Hey everyone, let me ask you something. Are you having a hard time with the procurement process? Are you struggling to find the right suppliers? Is negotiating time consuming and tedious? Are your materials showing up late and causing project delays? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I have the solution for you CBUSA. CBUSA is the leading construction group purchasing organization, and they're making all the pain points a thing of the past. Soon, top builders in Minneapolis will have the opportunity to use CBUSA as their procurement partner. Minneapolis isn't the only market, though. Go to cbusa.us/learn to see if there's an established or upcoming chapter near you. That's cbusa.us/learn. Additionally, if you want to hear the backstory about CBUSA, you can listen to Curious Builder episode number 26 with Ryan Lipchek.
Lake Society Magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society Magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine.
Today on the Curious Builder podcast, I've got Brad Robinson from Bradford Homes. We had an amazing conversation. I really enjoyed really diving deep. About halfway through, we spent the last half hour of the episode all about the client experience. So if you want to maybe fast forward 30 minutes, if that's what your jam, that's where you want to go. But really, there's just so much charisma and character, and you could really get a sense that Brad cares for his people. He was constantly talking about without his team, he wouldn't exist. So without further ado, let's listen to Brad Robinson from Bradford Custom Homes. Welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. Today I am joined with Brad Robinson from Bradford Custom Homes and Remodeling. I have never done an intro like that, but it just seemed appropriate for you, Brad. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So we met, I think, for the first time at the Builder Show here recently, and I know you were going to come into Minneapolis for the Contractor Coalition, but you wisely chose your son's baseball game. So for all those out there thinking about choosing business over family, take a keynote from Brad, choose your family, because there's always another event coming up soon. So anyway, I enjoyed meeting you and wanted to bring you on the show, and appreciate you reaching out via social media. So it's a small world.
It truly is, and social media makes it a lot smaller. So I didn't count or anything like that, but I'm sure that we had at least 100 engagements on social media before we met one another.
I know
sure.
I just kind of a cool part. You know, people talk a lot about the negativity with social media, especially with young kids, you know, how to limit it. But all the positives are your world ends up being so small, and you can be huge fans of other people's work. And obviously the collaborative nature of Instagram in particular, you know, you see what you're doing and it kind of inspires you to maybe, you know, add a feature in your home, or if there's a personality that you really gravitate towards, you know, you might reach out to them and say, hey, you know, let's grab coffee, Zoom coffee. That'd actually be a great business handle, Zoom coffee. Anyway.
Don't give me any ideas.
I know you have a lot of businesses. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know who you are? You're out of Atlanta, Georgia. You've got like 18 businesses, and now you just started a coffee Zoom company. Tell us a little bit about your history, how you got into it, and you know, kind of what, and then we'll kind of launch into State of the Union in terms of building in Atlanta.
Sure. Well, thanks. I think we need to divide that business number by a few for sure. But I've got to say, I've had a really exciting career, and I've done a lot of different things, but I'll go back to my humble days. I started in the construction industry working at good old Sherwin-Williams. So I was slinging paint. One thing led to another, was managing accounts, got recruited by a company, cut my teeth learning how to paint, build decks, do all of those fun things. It was, you know, introduction to construction 101 in those days, but I was, you know, 19 years old or so. So fast forward a few years, had some wonderful relationships and had some very hungry and passionate friends of my own, and we said, let's go start a paint company, which I don't think many people say that, it's like, that's not the guiding star. You're thinking, whatever, but, grew that business to about 13 million bucks over the course of about 4 years.
Wow, that's no joke.
Had some absolutely amazing builders that I became very close friends with, and I mean some of the guys from Atlanta that really well. I think we both have a common friend in Mr. Vincent Longo down here. We actually did a lot of his work back in the day,
Did
or
you
some of
really?
it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow, what a small world. Yeah,
funny.
he's in my builder 20, and, yeah, anyway, it is such a small world. Wow, that's cool that
It
you were painting for him. How many employees did you have in that painting company?
I think we probably had close to about 150 subs at the time. And then we had an office staff we were pretty lean and mean. I think we only had about 15 folks on staff. So we were efficient, learned a lot about business in those years, went through 2008 in that business. And then a partner that I had at the time, we bought him out. And then I ended up having one last partner who ended up buying me out. And so I, uh, graciously went on and wanted to learn more about commercial design and retail design, and got to spend some very fun years learning about how the commercial space works, how that environment needs to perform, and learned a lot of valuable lessons about space planning and management, and the design through that. And then fast forward 2018, I had an opportunity. I've had the same phone number. I don't know. I'm probably like you. I've had the same phone number for like my whole life, literally.
That's yeah,
And
I agree. I think I had an old flip phone in college. I don't think my number's changed since then.
yeah, I mean, and I will never get rid of this number. I mean, whoever owns my number, like they could blackmail me for whatever they want. But long or short, my phone was ringing like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I was like, I haven't been in the game in a little while, but and then it just took one. And then it was like a whole home remodel or something like that. It was, very small at this time. I mean, maybe $250,000 project. So it was like, yeah, let me do it. And all of a sudden, I never looked back. From that point forward, just explosive growth. I made he's a colleague, but he's become like family to me, and my partner Cody, who's our VP of construction, and he was building some new construction, and then it just kind of supercharged us, quite frankly. And then fast forward to today, we're full on design build now, and focusing on high performance and having opportunities at projects that I never could have dreamt of. And so it's just very exciting. It's a very exciting time. The other businesses I think that you were referring to, I kept that commercial in my blood, and I created a company. We execute 3PL labor services for a lot of the retailers that and again, in life, it's all about relationships, and we
So are
go
tho
in
I'm not
and
familiar with that term. Are you doing build outs for commercial firms? Is that what you mean by that?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, think about customers. Our customers are like Home Depot. We would go into those locations and install a lot of the parts and pieces around
That's
that store
amazing
that
that Home Depot is your customer. That's, really ironically fun.
yeah, I can't take all the credit. I do. My small claim to fame and spending time with Home Depot is that I had an opportunity to help them re-envision the parking lot space, and how pros park, and how handicap folks park in that parking lot, and just how that environment works. And I got to do it in partnership with a great manufacturing company. And so a lot of history there, and just spending a lot of time with their, engineers and their architects, and understanding how those big companies operate. So tons of fun.
That's super interesting. Well, let's go back to something you said in the beginning, which was back to this painting company. So when somebody buys you out, I mean, I understand at high level, but it's just kind of intriguing for, sometimes when people aren't aware or aren't a part of a buyout, like how does that go in terms of like valuating the company? How does one buy a partner out? You don't have to get specific. You can stay sort of high level, or unless you want to. I just think it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people that are listening are business owners. Maybe they want to buy into a company, and in this case, you sold out. So either way, I think the information is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we in essence looked at, a lot, all the KPIs that you might be looking for in your P&L or on the balance sheet, and just determining, okay, the company has XYZ in assets, the company has Y in debt, the company has, this much cash flow, and, this is what your EBITDA is, right? So if you're looking at your net profit margin, and then you start deducting things like taxes and all that good stuff, you get down to that number. And then generically, it's done as a multiple of that EBITDA number, plus consideration for the assets that you have on hand. So, it's pretty straightforward. But at the end of the day, you got to
Yeah,
make
it
it
sounds
attractive
super
to somebody.
straightforward. Yeah, super straightforward. Yeah, super, super simple. I'm like, not simple.
I don't. I'm not trying to make it sound overly
Yeah. No,
simple.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I mean, did you end up doing it just internally and running your own numbers? Do you usually
oh yeah,
did most people hire a third party to sort of verify and kind of help with that transaction? I mean, what does that
yeah.
look like?
There's great business brokers out there who will come in and act as a third party consultant to help you give validity to the numbers that you're essentially selling to the buyer. So, if they're going to verify, you can also use your CPA. Your CPA is good at helping break the numbers down into a manageable format for, a potential suitor to come in and look at and feel confident that, hey, these numbers have been verified by someone who is, technically licensed.
Right.
So yeah, there's ways about it. In my particular case, I sold out to a partner that I had been in business with since,
Right.
the whole time. He
Mhm.
knew exactly what the business was worth, and he was looking at not only the dollars and cents on hand plus cash flow, he was looking at what future opportunity he knew he could get out of it. So
Is that painting company still around, or did he sell out?
so he actually converted it. So during the 2008 2014 timeframe, obviously a lot of that trade work that we were doing for builders was, it was pulling back. And as all that business pulled back, there was a lot of innovation in order to continue to create revenue for the business. And so one of those avenues that he had actually come up with was artistic epoxy flooring systems. I know that seems really obscure, but think of it almost as if it's an artist doing full panel flooring for you. So I'm trying to think of the right terminology. I don't know it all that well. I mean, we put it in some of our homes, in basements specifically. We have a couple of projects we've
Are you
done
talking
where
about where they're, like, polishing the concrete as well, or true, like, epoxy overcoats,
it's a true
like a micro bevel? Or not a
Yeah,
micro
it's a
bevel, I'm
it's a
sorry,
self-leveling product.
okay.
So it's like a self-leveling epoxy product that you can put metallic veining inside of, and you move the product, and the product eventually moves on its own and creates its own unique. Like
Wow.
in our conference room right now, we've designed this floor to look like a piece of single solid piece of Carrara marble. So I can't flip the camera around and show you, but I'll send you a picture. It's kind of unique, and it looks like it's one solid continuous piece of flooring. And so in certain places it looks really nice. And I mean, he's been doing it ever since. It's still a very profitable business for him, and he's kept it going. Although I had to steal him back, so he is in the Bradford organization now.
Oh.
I got 2.5 years into this thing and said I need my killer back, and so we got him back.
Oh, funny. So, so he's still operating both companies, or he's got someone kinda running the painting company then?
Yeah, so he's hired an operator, and that operator is doing a lot of the day-to-day lift. He kind of comes in and,
I assume you use them then for all your painting as well?
so no, I actually, and his company doesn't do traditional painting like we would refer to it. They're only doing the specialized
I see.
finishes for flooring.
Okay.
So, but we do actually, in our organization, the Bradford organization, as well as my Lake City organization, which is a home exteriors company. We have developed and trained our own in-house paint team. So we self-perform all painting and high performance finishes in-house in our
Wow,
organization.
that's gotta be a huge differentiator, in your market. I suppose any market, but I'm a big we only build a handful of homes a year, and we like to be very, high end in our finishes. And painting is one of the first things I do, especially if you're a painting snob. You would know more about paint than I would, obviously, with your background, but I can always tell it by feel. Anytime I walk into a Pareto home or artisan home, I'm always rubbing my hand up. Even though I don't know that much about it, I know how it feels when it's good. And if you can see that it's bad, then I can only imagine what it feels like. Cause usually your eye can be deceived, but your touch usually can tell you, how buffed or how smooth that finish is. And that's I don't know too many builders. I'm sure a handful of remodelers would have their own painters on staff, but I don't know too many new home companies that would have their own painting crew in house. That's pretty progressive of you guys.
Well, I mean, very large percentage of our business is remodeling. So in order to, keep that quality consistent through and through, we're choosing to do that. Now, I'm not going to say we have to supplement. We're at the place now where we've, gotten to the place where we're too busy. We have too many projects going on to where they can't be on every project. And so we supplement with companies that give us the same quality and folks that we have trusted relationships with. But that field test, not many. I don't think a lot of people know about that. But that's exact. We barely turn on the lights when we go check paint, and that sounds absurd, but that's the truth. I don't know what your standard practice is on finishing trim, but ours is lacquer undercoat or base with a full top coat. Latex top coat. Nowadays, it used to be oil based finish, but when you're sanding down lacquer undercoater, you know that it's going to be slick as a baby's bottom.
Yeah. So how many total coats are you doing?
On the trim?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's mostly 3 coats.
3 coats. Okay. Yeah. I'd say 3 to 4. 3 is fine if they do it well. I mean, 4, we used to have a company that we worked with that I really loved their finish, but obviously they're expensive. We would do 2 primer coats and 2 finish coats, and whew, it was like a car finish. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta market's almost 14, $15 a foot these days,
Okay.
interior, exterior. I mean, depending on obviously all the other details, but
Mhm.
it's still not a cheap service.
What is so Lake City, let's talk a little bit more about some of your other businesses. So Anchor Retail must be your commercial build outs, is that right? So we
Yep.
already talked about that. Your Lake City exterior, so this is essentially what, siding, roofing, like what are you supplying necessarily?
Yep. So we primarily focus on home exterior renovations. Our larger projects are inclusive of the 5 core, services of the business. So roofing, siding, cornice work, obviously, gutters, painting, and then we do window replacement as well. This business was formed through our relationship with Pella. We had goodness, we just couldn't handle all the intake. We didn't, these inbound leads that we were getting, we didn't want to dilute the Bradford brand with service work, and we wanted to continue to delineate our high-end service from just the average everyday service provider. So with the partner through Pella of Georgia, which they're great partners for us, they convinced us and twisted our arm to make it happen. And so we stood a company up. We used their marketing company. Pella's marketing company built us out from the backside, and we developed and built a team. And I mean, John Joldersma and Brian and the guys down here are just they bless us. They keep us flush with lots of projects to install for them. And I look at it as we're a strategic partner. They call on us when their customers have large scale remodels, and they call us for us to take care of those customers.
That's amazing. I mean, I have a very tight relationship with Pella up here in Minneapolis. I've worked with them for 20 years and done some brand ambassador stuff with them. And I mean, they're a sponsor of the podcast. Actually, when I first started, they were my first call saying, "Hey, I know I'm going to have some costs incurred, and we're going to be sharing builder stories." And originally it was mostly Minnesota companies, and so obviously I went to my local, Pella companies. I had built a couple homes for actually the owners of Pella at the time. They've since sold it, and I have a relationship obviously with the new owner. But when you can align yourself with a company that you believe in, and you've demonstrated that you believe in them by your not only your patronage, but also just a long-standing commitment to a relationship. It's no different than your painter, your trimmer, your cabinet. The one thing sometimes that people don't understand, in fact, I just got off a bid call on a remodel, and a lot of times the architect or the client will ask for 2 or 3 bids, and sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not. And I had a concrete bid that I was defending, and it was about 10,000 higher than the other concrete bid. And they said, "Well, why aren't we saving the $10,000? $100,000. And I said, we can. I've worked with both companies, but you're in a remodel, not a new home. And the company that's lower is really inexpensive. They do good work, but they are awful at communication, and they are they will absolutely, nickel and dime you all the way up. As long as you know that going in, we can do it. However, on a remodel, I like the professionalism of this other concrete company. They are just so dialed in. Their scheduling is unbelievable for a concrete company, which has to have an asterisk next to it. And yeah, you're laughing because
True.
it turns out it's not just Minnesota; it's across the country. And I really need to have some concrete companies on to ask them why scheduling is so hard. I mean, they always say weather and whatnot, but we all deal with weather to some degree. Anyway, long story short, they understood it. And like, sometimes there are people that I think people understand, like framing or electricity or, electricians or whatever that, hey, or like cabinetry. My cabinetry really is what sets us apart, along with my trim work. So if someone is coming to our brand and they're like, well, we love your brand, we're not going to, but like framing, drywall, paint, I'm painting. Painting is actually one of the ones where they're like, well, anybody can paint. You're like, yeah, anybody can. My 5-year-old can paint. It just looks like garbage. And so it's like, what level if you really value trim and carpentry, why are you not spending equal amount of attention on the painting? Because the painter is the last guy in that can save you. He's also the last guy in that can ruin good work. So it's like, it kind of rests in the hands of a good painter either way. So anyway.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%. And they're always the guys that are being asked to fix everybody else's work on top of them. So it's like they're the worst. It's the worst
I don't
sometimes.
know. I mean, honestly, well, maybe you are a good person to ask because you were a painter. I don't the mind You have to be so chill to be it's so not my maybe it's I can't relate to it because I'm so opposite of being a completely chill and relaxed person. Like all my painters are always like very like tranquilo. They're just like very just like, yeah, no problem, Mark. We got it. No problem. I'm like, dude, we got the parade of home starting in like 24 hours. Like, you think you can repaint this, that, or another thing? Like, no, we got it. They're always so relaxed. And I'm just like, wow, I don't know how they must all take like blood pressure, like medication to like keep their blood pressure down. Cause did you agree that most painters just seem like really even keel or just like almost like asleep at the wheel?
It's wild. I mean, I think they're just conditioned for it. It's like a lifetime of just, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? At some point, it's just easier to say, sure, I got you, than it is to say no every time.
The hardest part is trust because so then they all say yes, but they don't always all deliver what you think they are. And it does put you at ease, even as the builder, as the professional. I didn't realize this podcast was going to be a rip on painting as an industry, but it was like, you're like, you go and you ask the painter to do something. It's like, I got this. And you're like, and then you eventually, my normal go-to is you push a few times and you kind of want them to come back like, I got this. And then when they do, I relax. I'm like, okay, they got it. Then you come back and they don't got it. And you're like, oh man, my paranoia really was real.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, because it does happen, right? Like it's inevitable that something's going to get missed. One little thing over here or there, but it's like, if I'm usually satisfied with 90% on the first run,
Mhm.
if I can
Yeah.
get there, I can solve the rest.
Well, okay. Let's talk a little bit about painting actually, because you're such a, have a good repertoire on this. How do you guys handle, the the blue tape walkthrough with the client? And how do you handle it as an internal organization prior to meeting with the client? Because I want to talk about your kind of your detailed, walking through a client experience. But let's talk about painting, because painting ends up being one of those things that I feel like as an industry, we do a very poor job of educating our clients of what is acceptable, what is great, and even how they should react. I mean, sometimes the client doesn't even know how to react to a good paint job or a bad paint job. Walk us through your observations of the industry and how you treat your clients during, these, kind of the last 30-day punch list and kind of that area of painting.
Yeah, and I think you probably can empathize with this. Is my job is half builder, half educator. So it starts in pre-construction when we're explaining the process and we're walking them through what they can expect, and we're giving them sort of a roadmap. But you're right, they don't know when prime was versus first coat was versus point up. So I kind of just help them like, hey, when you guys see some these weird black swirls on your wall, like, just understand you're in punch up. We're punching that thing out, right? So like the drywall guys are going to come back through. And then when you see that coat beyond that, that's when you should start becoming concerned about the finish. But what we do is we'll preemptively provoke a walk. So we'll make a list on our own. Our superintendent will walk that site. He'll blue tape it up right after the first coat's done. And because there are painters, a lot of times they'll come back in and do one sweep before the client ever has a chance to see it. So when the client does come in and we're getting into that last, let's say we're in the last part of that phase, not 30 days, but let's just say we're at that point where your floors are clean, you've got paint on the walls, everything's pretty much done. We're doing a walk together. My superintendent's already done a walk. He's blue taped it. So when the customer comes in, they already see what I see. They already know what I have to say about the quality of finish.
So are you leaving the blue tape on the walls in front of the client?
Yeah, absolutely. I want them to see that we're doing our job and quality controlling the job in the way that we told them they would. So that's their chance to join the fun, right? And I know that sounds terrible because you're like, oh my God, how do your walls look when they're done? You'd be surprised. They actually come back with less when I show them what I care about. And so I kind of walk in.
It goes back to that earlier comment, like it relaxes the client. Like I don't have to be so concerned with everything because guess what? Brad and his team are. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, because we're showing we're showing that we're proactive against the work already.
I have two questions about this. One is, do you give them a roll of blue tape or do you keep it in your own hands?
No, we give them one of their own, but we don't give it to them until, nobody's allowed to blue tape before, right? You can't get there early and start blue taping. It's like when we get there, then we do it together.
Yeah. I heard the reason. Okay. And then my second question, why blue tape? Why is it out? Like everyone I talk to, you're in, like, why is it, how did blue tape get designated as the official, paint touch up, blue, tape that we give to our, clients? Because a lot when they're using masking tape they don't use the blue tape. Like why blue tape?
I don't know, but this segment was brought to you by 3M.
Blue tape, which is based on Minneapolis. Thank you. So maybe I better hit them up as a sponsor.
There you go. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, we've used frog tape for a while because we thought it had sharper lines, but it's more expensive. So we don't use that whenever we're doing our point up. Blue tape 1 inch, man. I like it because I like to split it down the middle and make arrows. Do you do that too?
Sometimes especially if it's up high, I'm 6'2". So sometimes my clients that are shorter or, even if my painters are shorter, they'll like, hey, Mark, come over here. But, they know I'm, I'll be jumping up on the ceiling or, I can get to about 10 feet. That's about it. So it's like, as long as I've got the 9 foot is no problem, but by the end I better have dropped my hops because if I'm jumping up, actually you learn all these little tricks, right? So like the back of a broom handle, you do a little loop and then you put it on the top of the broom handle and you can stick it on the ceiling. That worked out way better.
That's right.
Wow, we digressed on that one. But the blue tape 1 inch, I was told recently, never give a client a roll of blue tape. And for the majority of my career, it has not been an issue, but I've had a couple clients where it's you wish you never would have given them one because now, I think they're single-handedly causing the stock to go up in 3M. But they, every time you go to the house, it's more and more and more. And I don't think I'll do it again. I don't think I want, because I always did what you did. I would go through with my team. I'd have my project manager do it first. I tend to be probably the pickiest, actually. I'm by far the pickiest. I think when I come, it's like Moses through the Red Sea. The painters are like, get out of the way. Here comes Mark. Oh no. Forget the Red Sea. It's the Blue Sea with the tape. And, they do not like, it just is what it is. They're fine. They're so relaxed. What do they care? So it's just like up it goes. I'm convinced that half the time I put the blue tape up and then they walk by and they just pull it down and I'll walk by that wall like the next day. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I marked something there. So one of these days I should really actually verify that and like somehow come up with like a tracker location, because a lot of times it's so much of it's based on light. You, as everyone listening who's a builder or a remodeler obviously knows that, man, the days that if you have high light or high contrast, or shadow lines, my goodness. And a lot of it's the sheetrock. So the poor painter, has to, again, be the last, buy your painters some pizza and get them some cool drinks on a hot day because they earn it, man. They make your stuff look good.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive, the software for builders that automates draws, budgets, and bookkeeping with AI. For over a year now, I've been partnered with Adaptive, and they've just been an amazing game changer in terms of efficiency in our time and all our bookkeeping. From the time we get an invoice, we import it into their system. The AI codes it, cost codes it, job codes it. All we have to do is review it, pass it through the people internally in the office, all digitally, and then it gets approved and paid all via ACH. It's becoming extremely fast and saving us countless hours a day and a week. When it comes to draws, all of our budgets now are set in Adaptive as well. So now when we cost code against the draws, we can do our change orders, and then with a click of a button, we can submit these draws to our title companies or to our homeowners for faster payment. If you're looking to save time, and if you're looking to be accurate, I highly recommend Adaptive. Additionally, if you'd like to listen to one of their founders share the story of Adaptive, you can listen to episode number 15 on the Curious Builder podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19.5 years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella Windows. Find more at pellanorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella Windows. Wow, we spent a lot of time talking about painting on this one. Let's talk a little bit about your client experience. I'm kind of obsessed with the concept, and I don't know why it's taking me 20 years to really spend time. I'm actually currently in the middle of mapping out from the first time I have a incoming call, a 15-minute call, a 1-hour meeting, a design agreement, and then all the way to the end, and then past 1 year. And actually, I want to do even out to 10 years would be my goal, because we have to warranty our homes for 10 years in Minnesota. That's where my headspace is at right now. It's going to take me 6 months to kind of figure out what I want to do with it in between actually building people's homes and running a podcast. Back to you. What does client experience mean to you? One of the things I was reading about on your website was just, you talk a lot about, ongoing communication, reducing their stress. You talk about, the client experience. I mean, we all want client experience. We all, as a business owners, want to produce it. What does it mean to you? And what have you found in your career that works, and what doesn't work, and how have you evolved?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot behind that, right? So, I have to admit that when I first began building custom homes, I was so laser focused on the product that I found that we were missing things on customer experience, and that we would build these beautiful homes and the customer would be mad about it. And I just felt to myself, like, look at this beautiful thing. And it was through that experience and just understanding that you can't be one dimensional. You have to be capable of being multidimensional in the thought behind how your process works and how the customer experiences your product, not just at the end, but in the process of building. So, we don't have any pre-sales specs. We're not semi-custom. Our customers find us and ask us, for concept to keys. And in doing that, and as we began to become, I would just say it was really an empathetic approach. It was like, look, we just have to put ourselves in their shoes, and we have to create a roadmap of their experience that will have them raving about not only the product that they've gotten, but the experience that they had with us. And so we created this project development roadmap. So kind of like what you did, obviously we had our, we that was a sales admin task technically. So, the admin would take the first inbound call, you go through that process and all the way to the point where you're in pre-con. But once it lands there, we have a very strategic way we take them through the process of developing not only architectural concepts, but the major build components of a build, and then the interior design, because we have interior design in-house. So, we are fully responsible throughout the entire component of them developing this project. And so we started there, and then we developed our process around how the customer would be handled during the construction phase. And what we learned is that when we increased the cadence of communication, when we started having weekly or biweekly meetings with customers, because we have a different cadence during pre-con than we do in construction. So we're biweekly in construction, we're weekly in pre-con. And that could seem like a lot, sure. Some of our projects that have digestion time built in, it may not be on a weekly, but you get the drift, right? So increase cadence and communication, and then asking directly for feedback. And so we do a scoring system. So the pre-con manager all the way through the project manager, we're asking the customer to give us some feedback on how they feel their experience is going, because we want to kind of monitor that roller coaster effect that happens.
Is that a weekly report, like on a Friday, and like, because are you guys using Builder Trend?
We are, yeah. So
So your weekly reports, your Friday recaps, and your look aheads, are you putting it in there, or how are you gathering this information, and how are you getting your clients to not only rate you, but to do it regularly?
surveys. So we're using the survey tool inside of Builder Trend to send that out after the meeting. So it's rather straightforward. Even though the project manager is asking, what they're essentially doing is priming them. They're getting them ready for that survey to go out. So it's, hey, how's it going? Here's some updates about the project. Here's where we are today. We don't typically have finance conversations in ours because we've moved completely from cost plus to fixed fee. So we're not having many conversations around finance during the build cycle anymore,
That's
which
refreshing, isn't it? How long were you guys doing cost plus?
just mostly through COVID. We were fixed price going into COVID. We took a
Including
bath.
your remodels?
Yeah. All remodels all remodels have always been fixed price, because the remodel side for us in our market is much more geared towards fixed price. Now, if your client, like, and we tell our clients this, like, we won't back away from a project if they prefer cost plus, especially if we know there's going to be a lot of indecision, or they have very little time and can only make decisions just in time for us. We'll approach it that way, but we give essentially the riot act and, like, hey, look, this is how we typically work. Never come to us and ask us in the middle of a project what it's going to take for us to finish. That's not something that we do as standard practice. We can tell you where you are. We can tell you what it should be, but we cannot tell you down to the penny what it will be in the way that was happening. So we wanted to remove all of the customers' pricing anxiety. So market cooled off post COVID. Things are much more level now. Obviously, we kind of gone through somewhat of a dip, and that's good and that's great for now. But the only two escalation clauses that remain inside of our contract to date are earthwork and concrete. Those are the only two that are still in our contract language today.
So one of my favorite quotes is from Walt Disney, and they asked him how much Disney World would cost, and he said, "I'll tell you the cost when I'm done innovating." And like, that's a cost plus contract, right? I mean, granted, he's a creator, he's creating it, and but I just thought that was I'll probably use that the next time a client asks a little bit about the difference between the two. And it's not that you don't get bids, it's not that you don't know. I've been cost plus I got lucky. I switched to cost plus right before COVID. Actually, the reason I switched to cost plus is I had two homes that I built at the same time, right entering COVID, and they were monsters. They were like 2 to 3 times my normal value and size that I'd normally built at that time. And one was an extremely complicated modern home that I'd never built. And I said, I'll only do it if it's cost plus. And I can't, to your point, I said, here's where I think it's going to cost. But I mean, we got bids on it. But the other thing is the client probably made, oh man, hundreds of change orders. And so that's the only way you could build a house like that. Anyway, I digress. 5 years later, or however many years it's been since I've lost track of COVID, I actually want to go back to fixed bid. I think I talked to other builders in my builder 20, and I talked to other builders in general. And I think there's more money to be made in fixed bid, honestly, because people are so afraid of the big, bad, scary number. I think when I used to do fixed bid back early in my career for my first, 12 to 15 years, the sales proposition, they couldn't ever understand what the cost of the home was. They just had to kind of like, okay, I get it. This house is 1.2 million. What are the things that are included? And then they kind of just, I would lose people sometimes just because they didn't know, like, when you see a Visa statement, like when I check at the end of the month, and I sit down with my wife, I'm like, hey, wow, how did we get to this number? And like, oh, we bought a plane ticket, or we bought some new stuff for the kids or whatever. And like, before you know it, you're like, well, actually this number that seems right on. I think that's the advantage of a cost plus, because I try to bring the client in and say, this is how we got to your price. I am a bespoke custom builder. If you want the price to change, I need your help to change it, because this is your home. And that works really well for a client that, is in finance or in banking or is logical. I've run into a problem where you get every once in a while, you get a few people that want to run your business. And I'm really tired of that. And so I guess each one has a pro and con. You got to pick which sword you want to go to battle with. But right now I'm like, I think I kind of want to go back to fixed bid. So who knows? I'll do fixed bid for 5 years and I'll be like, I miss cost plus. So who knows?
It extends the time in pre-construction. That's the one direct, that's the direct correlation, is the length of time it takes to go through the selections process, have everything hammered out, share all of those things. What I say to our customers is pretty much the same thing you say to yours. It's like, you own the cost. If there's something that I'm not aware of, for instance, and I don't know, there's an assumption made, and then there's an allowance put in there, and we hold that until you make that decision. So you still impact that cost, right? Until we get to the place where you solidify that. And then, if we write it in as an allowance, that's what you've got to spend. I mean, there's still allowances in fixed price. It's not, I don't think there's a contract out there that truly is 100% perfect going into it. Maybe there are some, but maybe those are some internal rule sets that they have where they just won't start a project until down to the nail.
I think this goes back to one of the things that you have right on your website. You call it the process of success, which is just simply, ongoing project communication. I ran into a real big issue last year. I've been trying for a long time to delegate more work to my people. And anyway, long story short, the client was not being educated or communicated to in the way that they should. And at the end of the day, the blowback and the cost to me was excessive. It cost me a lot of money. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your people, but ultimately, I think that scoring system would have revealed pretty quickly that the client was unhappy with communication, and then I probably would have stepped in. So maybe that survey would have saved me, where I was not exercising that part. Frankly, I didn't even know Builder Trend had that tool. I just wrote it down. I'm gonna have to look into that, because that sounds amazing. But I guess where I'm going with is just communication, both in fixed bid or cost plus, as long as you are telling your client ahead of time what you just told them. I don't know what this is going to cost. Here's an idea. And as long as you have those weekly check-ins, I like bi-weekly myself. Especially if you have multiple projects, weekly just becomes a lot for the team. I mean, it seems like as soon as you've met with the client, you already have to get prepared for the next meeting. You're like, well, nothing. I haven't even had time to do all the things I said I was going to do the first time. And I'm not a big fan of just meeting to meet. In fact, few things make me as excited as a canceled meeting, because you're like, I overcommit my schedule. I'm like an airline. I definitely oversell my seats in terms of time. And so if I get a canceled meeting, I'm like, yes, you feel relaxed. You're like, oh, I have some time. And you think I'm going to be so efficient. You wasted doing something else. But anyway, you get the point.
Yeah. Well, on the construction side, it's every 2 weeks, but pre-con, because we have change in concept, or, modification to concept a lot of times, where I'm getting new renderings back on, well, this wine fridge needs to be horizontal versus vertical. It's like, oh, here's your change. Those things go fast, once a week, checking in on that. That's the kind of thing we do. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of one more piece on the, customer experience. And again, like, that process of success is, we are trying to build confidence every step of the way. We never stop trying to build confidence, even after we've been awarded the job and we're, working through it. It's all about having our customers feel like they've made the right decision, number one, but also that we established ourselves as the expert, and now we've proven that we are the experts because we've committed that throughout the entire project. And I think that our customers feel that. Now, do we make mistakes? all the time, man. We're human, like I love my guys. Our team is easily the only reason that we're having any kind of success and growth. I give it all to them, right? But the philosophy that has come down from me is that we are going to be successful through customer obsession. That is the only way that we are going to get to the place we want to go and do the types of projects we're going to do. And we're not going to relent on that, period. So it's ingrained in the culture here. There, you could grab every one of these guys outside of the hall and pull them aside, and they'll tell you the same thing almost verbatim.
How
Because
big?
they're
I was going to ask you this earlier, but I forgot. How many total employees do you have?
so office staff, designer. We have a architect, designer on staff. We have 4 PMs, couple superintendents, office staff. Obviously, I think we're up to 12 now in the office. And then our self-perform team is only about 9 guys deep right now. And then obviously the subs
Yeah,
base
yep,
side.
yep,
So,
yep.
so
Um,
not too bad.
yeah, that's interesting. Going back to only just because I was trying to think of, I love this concept, customer obsession. Um, I think one of the things that's so rewarding about working with obviously our trade partners, but we're working with our clients. They basically are part of your team for for the part of that journey, right? And there are certain clients that impact your life. As well as your trade partners and employees differently than others, and some in many ways in a very positive, very good way. I have this client, and she's an amazing woman. And we worked on her home for 3 years. And when it was done, after 3 years, everyone's kind of just tired and you're kind of ready to move on. But within like a month after she had moved in, we both kind of felt like this weird absence. Like we were so used to seeing each other, every 2 weeks. And it was like, I just stopped by her house one day. I'm like, surprise, I haven't seen you in a month. I just thought, yeah, I should stop by and say hi because this feels awkward. Like, did we break up? Like, what happened? And so we've remained, pretty close. We'll text, and she's been a huge advocate. If I have clients that are interested in, homes, she is great about letting me come through. Well, I felt kind of bad because, these clients build, in this case, it was a $4 million home, gorgeous home. And I'd show it every day. I mean, who wouldn't want to see this house? It's just gorgeous. Every time I walk into it, she takes such good care of it that I'm just like, thank you for being my client. I feel so rewarded that not only did I get to build you this amazing home, and it was a wonderful experience for me and for the client, but she keeps her home like the day I left it, which is a huge compliment to you as a craftsman. And then to bring people through it and have her raving about her own house, it's like, I don't need to sell anything. Just look at her. She's just like oozing about this house. Well, anyway, long story short, I don't very often show her house, and I showed her house on like this random Tuesday at 10 a.m. And I just happened to have another client that was sort of interested. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go there, I might as well try to dovetail this. So I ended up lying 2 clients and a realtor all to come to her house at the same time. And I was orchestrating and did it all. And so I'm like, I need to say thank you because this is an amazing deal. So I sent her like some champagne, a gift box, and some like whatever. She sent me a text yesterday saying like, you didn't need to do that. We love you so much. If there's anything we can do to help you, and you're just like, oh my word, how do I get more clients like this? This lady's amazing. But it goes both ways. Like she honestly felt the same way. She's like, you do not need to say thank you. And I'm like, how could I not say thank you 100 times more? And I just think that speaks to a special nature that building somebody's home, it's so emotional. And when it goes really well, that's like the loftiest it can be. That's like when I'm done with my career, I'll remember her. I will talk about her. I'll probably still see her. I'll probably still stop by her house if she's still there. Anyway, I mean, do you find that that type of, it's not every client, but there are clients like that just it gives you kind of this really incredible feeling that makes you kind of keep wanting to do what you do?
1,000%. I've got to say, we've just finished this beautiful design build that we did. Not the biggest house, right? Like only 2,200 square feet, but one of the most well optioned, homes that we've ever put our hands on. Amazing designer, and I've kept up with the homeowner probably on a monthly basis. I mean, they like to engage with our social media. They like to talk to us through social media. I'm seeing their stories and watching how their lives are progressing in their new home. I'm seeing new furniture come in, and I'm loving watching everything. But it's like, hey, we're getting down to that time of, it's like we need to go back in about a couple months and make sure that we tidy up some things after the 1 year, kind of warranty phase. And he reaches out to me and he's like, hey man, I just, I feel like I need to give you a call because I know that you told me about all these things about why you built my house the way you built it. And I know that I didn't understand half of it when you were explaining it to me, right? Like, why did we use, LP weather logic, and why did we choose to do spray foam, and why do we choose to do all these high performance features in this house? He's like, but I've been living here now, and my power bills are drastically reduced compared to anything I've ever experienced before. But not only that, I know we're getting ready for this thing, and I don't know a lot about houses, but I called a buddy who's a home inspector, and he came out and inspected the house, and all he could do was just dote on how well the house was built. And I was like, man, like, that means a lot. It does. But the fact that you love it and you're experiencing the direct benefits of the decisions that we made, and that you took my advice, and that you listened and you trusted us, and now you're seeing that that was beneficial to you, yes, it's like the same thing in essence. They're absolutely happy to let us bring customers too. And it's like, yeah, that's why you do this. I do this because of the lasting relationships that are made. And we're doing a large whole home renovation addition for his sister now. And that's how this business works. And it's a daisy chain effect. You meet one great person, and they introduce you to another great person, and then your network grows. And so when you stand back and reflect on the body of your work, it's not just the houses you create, but the network and the people that are within it. This is one of the few industries that happens. Most of the time you sell a product, you never hear from the person. In this sense, you've made friends, and oftentimes for a long period of time, you engage with them for a year, 2, 3, right? We have several of those, and it's honestly the reason I do this personally. My personal reason behind it is the lasting relationships that are made.
What other industry do you think, or what industries do you think are the best at client experience?
Man, that's tough. I mean, obviously, you think about entertainment; they have to be completely observant of every single part and piece, right? Retail is absolutely customer obsessed in a big way, because you're interacting with a space, and how you interact with that space is usually the determination of whether or not they're going to receive cash. So they're particularly concerned with your experience, but um, that's I'm sure there are plenty others. I just coming to I'm well, you know, I I'm just kind of using personal experience here. I know I'm into boating. I love surfing. That's one of our family hobbies. Is we live on a lake, and we do a lot of wake surfing. And I know that the manufacturer of the boat that I am a fan of, and the ones that I bought a couple of, they are absolutely inquisitive, and they are always asking us as buyers, what can they do to make their products better. And I would tell you that, yes, the luxury boat market is one of those industries that seems to care a lot about experience, but I think that's because that's their
I
lifeblood.
think that's a great question, by the way. What can we do to make your experience better? I think too often we wait till the end of a project to ask our clients, what, and it's kind of like the final meeting or whatever, and you kind of give them the keys, or however that process happens. I mean, it's been so long since you just hand somebody the keys. It's just like it seems like this weird process that somehow they move into their house, but there was really no final. I mean, it's much more organic now than it used to be when I first started. You before, when I first started building, it was like a closing table. It was very official. It was like the Buckingham Palace. Like, you got to wait for the guard with the top hat to turn around, and like, here's the keys. The house is now yours. So it's like now it's so like, oh, it's just much more laissez-faire. I think sometimes clients almost wish it was cleaner and more cut and dry. Now it's a much more casual affair. Um, Anyway, where I was going with this was I've kind of been obsessed with the hospitality industry. Nick Schiffer on the Modern Craftsman, who him, had shared this book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And I've talked about a little bit on the podcast before, but it's kind of been my go-to. It's been on my mind for the last 30 days. It's probably been my favorite book in the last 6 months. I read a lot of books. That book's incredible. We have so much to learn from hospitality. I'm thinking high-end restaurants, concierges at hotels. And, I take a meal, for example. I mean, you can obviously make a meal at home for a couple of dollars very inexpensively. You can spend, four, five, $600 at a really high end restaurant, totally different meal, obviously. But what you're really paying for is an experience. What you're really paying for if is kind of this perceived like it's like showmanship, entertainment. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out in all the spare time I have to try to figure out some of these ideas, like how can I sprinkle them into building a home? And I think one of the things that you said that brought it up for me is I think I need to check in with my client more regularly and say, what could I do that would make your experience better? The hard part is a lot of times they don't know because unless they've built before, they don't really know what to even compare it to. So if you were to ask one of your clients, what can I do that would make your experience better? What are some things that you've heard?
You know, most of the time it's just about detail. Customers are just as curious as, you know, uh, the guy that's doing the work a lot of times. It's like if they don't have good information, whether that's on a set of plans or whether that's a schematic drawing or a shop drawing for some specific detail or part or piece that we're putting in there, I think our customers are consistently asking us, it's like, how does that go together? It's like, is that gonna be how it is when it's done? You kind of hear that a lot, and you're like, no, no, no. There's a couple stages to having this thing get wrapped up. So, hey, if you're not aware, let me show you back, in this file folder over here, there's one of the details. It was, there's a signature next to it a lot of times, but it's like, this is what you should be expecting. And I think a lot of times people just kind of forget along the path, in a long cycle, like a long, build cycle. They just typically forget little details or, oh yeah, what was that I was getting over there? I forget that, they just, so those are a lot of the questions that we get. They're not necessarily so much of like, you could be doing this or that better. I've got to just, again, go back to doting on my team. I mean, we're constantly communicating. I mean, it's probably bad. I know Builder Trend's new communication tool, and I know the way that the chat feature is designed is it's supposed to, keep everything consolidated into one place so you can go back and see that communication flow and monitor, the cadence of communication. But we're still bad. I mean, our guys are communicating via text, they're communicating via email, they're communicating anywhere that is natural to that customer. So we're meeting them where they are. And that's just one of the kind of the rules that we break all the time.
That's funny you say that because I actually have written in my contract about texting because I've had a few that have clients that have particularly abused it, not only with me personally, but with some of our project managers where they cannot respect boundaries. And, we are in a client experience business, as I guess we just talked about how important that is. I feel like but respect is really important. The reason we treat their experience so well is we're trying to set them up for success and our team. And if you're on a long build and people don't have a time to recharge, if there's no mental headspace to regroup on nights and weekends, you and I as business owners have to protect our people. And anyway, like a lot of things in your contract, they're written there you know, um, for when you might need them. And, I've often told my clients, like, for me personally, I've talked about it a lot on the show, you know, I prefer email because I like the whole team to be able to see it. Or guess what? You can call me. Phone just works just fine. I texting for me personally is great for, hey, I'm running 5 minutes late to a meeting or just a quick tip. But what becomes a problem is when people start communicating regularly that way because it's convenient. They're sitting on their couch, they react to something. Again, it's fine for pictures and great for video, obviously, but it's a slippery slope. And so, I mean, we could probably have an entire episode with builders around the country of how texting has gone wrong because it can really be, a problem, even just like the dinging of a phone. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Social Network. Did
Oh
you
yeah.
see that a couple of years ago? I mean, just
Right.
how, when your brain is interrupted from its flow of thought, how disruptive it is, and actually physically harmful to your body. And in construction, someone was laughing the other day because, someone had described like their day as a plan, and everything has to go consensual, or in sequential order, or their day is ruined. And I'm like, I don't know any builder that could like that doesn't exist in building. Like there's nothing that goes right from the beginning to the end. Like if you are not able to adapt and switch and change and modify and be flexible, like you are in the wrong industry. And yeah, anyway, I guess I didn't really have a big point on that, just more of an observation of how texting can be harmful. And as owners, we have to also protect our people.
No, I mean there have been times where you're right. There's no boundaries. We just let our folks know. We tell our customers at the onset, like text is not official communication. It does not, if you get a response, it is not official communication. Like there's no approvals or there's nothing that we will ever say in a text message that is going to be binding in any way. So it's like if you need a quick question or whatever,
Yeah.
or you just want to, want to know something, like you're okay to do that. But if you don't get a response, you can't be upset with us either after hours. So we just kind of set the precedent that way. It's like if you send us a text and it's late at night, you're going to get something in the morning, just like you would as in an email. But, I think a lot of our customers are busy professionals. That's the majority of our base of customers. A lot of times, just even getting them into design meetings can be challenging. So, we're just trying to, like I say, it's kind of meeting them where they are, but in a lot of ways, like official business does get handled through email primarily. So, but it's about there's got to be two paths of respect there, period, no matter how you go about it.
Hmm. Well, as we kind of come in for a landing here, I was going to talk to you more about high performance building because I know that's something you're passionate about, but I don't think we're going to be able to cover that in 3.5 minutes. So maybe we'll save that for round two. Tell us a little bit about what you do in your spare time. Tell us about how you recharge and how do you stay excited about, because you're constantly iterating new business ideas. Where do you get your energy and where do you get your ideas from?
Man, the time that I get to myself it's few and far between, right? But where I do my best thinking is generally on the back of my boat. It's the only place that really allows me to feel like I can take a break. I have a 2-year-old son, and it seems like all the core memories that we're creating right now are out there. Doesn't hurt that it's also summer here. In the winter, I find myself twiddling my thumbs sometimes. Might wander out to the golf course just to hit some balls or something, but which we can do that here in Georgia. You can't do that where you're at. So
Yeah, you
sorry about
can, but
that.
they just disappear in the snow.
Exactly. Other than that, man, like I've gotten really into, some sustainable causes. I really like the idea of, on the side of high performance, I've been trying to educate myself to the best that I can, but sustainability and high performance are important. I subscribe to it personally. I have a Rivian, it's like, I love the idea of having a small footprint and just trying to learn more about how we can kind of incorporate more nature back into this, utilitarian, environment that we seem to create.
That's funny you say that. I just was sharing a stage with someone last week, Jonathan Kramer for Eversphere. He does some air testing. And are you familiar with the term? Is it biophilic design?
Biofield.
Basically, yeah. But there, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. I would love. He was telling me about how basically bringing nature into your home, as you already mentioned. But there's a company that makes like this is not his description. This is mine. But basically like Nespresso pods for like coffee, right? There's a company that you can have like a plant wall, and you can have like a little barcode with these little plants, and then you can plant different, well, I don't know, different types of plants. Because I have a black thumb. Anything that would be in my house would be dead. I certainly appreciate it, but I don't want to take care of it. And basically, these little plant pods will grow. They'll take care of them, and it's a way to basically, especially if people are gone, because indoor plant life has such amazing effects for air quality. And so I'd be really interesting to see how those design changes happen in residential homes, because I think they're probably more prevalent in commercial design, would be my guess. But anyway, I would now come to think of it, I really want to have somebody in that field that's an expert on the podcast, because that'd be a fascinating topic to to dive into.
Yeah, we're doing a living roof downtown on this. It's a really cool project. But to your point about having it be incorporated, it's like when you get into the there's a lot of technical stuff to it because you're adding a lot of weight in a lot of cases. But it really is interesting. I'll share some of that when it comes to life
Yeah,
soon.
that'd be amazing to see. I mean, I follow you guys on Instagram and you do beautiful work, and I like kind of how you celebrate. It seems like your cinematography is pretty good. You've got like a movie creator for some of your ads. So kudos to James Cameron for coming on and doing some Bradford home commercials for you.
Don't make
For
his
those
head
that
too
want to,
big.
yeah, too big. For those that want to reach out to you, best place would be LinkedIn, bradfordhomes.com. Bradford Built, I think, is your Instagram handle. Is that right?
Yep. So I mean, predominantly going to be on Instagram, Facebook, but yeah, we have a presence on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. I try to stay very closely connected to my network. Sometimes I'll share some things out there. I'm not leveraging LinkedIn as a marketing tool, probably like I should, but I know that I have a robust network full of great people that have a good understanding of what I do, and I try to share things that are relevant there that they might also enjoy. So just that's the easiest place to find us for now.
One last thing. How did you come up with Bradford? How did I mean your name is Brad Robinson. How did Bradford Custom Homes become a thing?
Well, my mother calls me Bradford because that is my true first name,
I
and
gotcha.
I understand the sentiment behind people creating businesses with their last name leading the name of said business, but I had a different philosophy that I wanted to do, and I wanted to just kind of lean in towards just Bradford. Like when I was thinking about the name, it was just going to be Bradford, period. I wasn't going to say anything else. It was going to be Bradford. And then I was like, well, I guess I have to give some details. So, all right, it'll be Bradford.
I mean, I like it a lot. Mine, because no one tells you when you're 23 and you start a company, don't name it Mark D. Williams Custom Homes, because you're like, it makes it really hard to sell. At least Bradford, that sounds like, I could sell that. That's like a line. That's like Burberry, high-end luxury homes of Atlanta. Watch out, Burberry. Thanks again for coming on. It was great to have you. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, man. I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to it.
All right. Thanks, Brad. We are happy to announce that we have a one-to-one coaching session that can be found on our Curious Builder podcast platform. So you can book a time with me, and it'll be 1 hour to ask any sort of questions that you want, talk about business, talk about life. Maybe you're dealing with a difficult client and you just want to maybe shop with another builder and say, hey, how do I handle this? Or maybe you're looking to rebrand your company. Whatever it might be, you can head to our website and book a time, and I'd be happy to sit down and give you that hour, and we can talk about whatever's on your mind. The podcast has now been running for the last 2 years, and it's because of people like you that are listening to the podcast, spreading the word, that our audience continues to grow. One of the ways that you as listeners can help support the show is head to our merch page, our shop page on the CuriousBuilderPodcast.com. You'll see that we have 3 different offerings now. We have a shirt that we partnered with Harnish on. We have a hat from BOGO that I use for ultra running. It's also just incredibly sweat resistant. So for any of you guys who are outside in the sun working, the hat looks great, but it's also extremely resilient to sweat. And then, of course, our Hive notebooks. These notebooks are amazing. I was given one a couple years ago and I've fallen in love with it. The paper's made out of stone. It's waterproof. It's tear-proof. It's amazing. So if you like what you listen to, if you appreciate the show and the content that we're producing, please head to the shop page. Buy a notebook, buy 2, give some to your employees, give some to the guys in the field. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at CuriousBuilderPodcast.com.